Evolution.org, episode 650 is coming your way. Today we have a good interview here, special interview with EVO brother Ohdamn. So if you go on the forum top right, you can click on the search bar, search button, search bar, whatever you want to call it, and then you see buy member. And in the member box, you put in his name, Ohdamn, and you'll be able to pull up all his posts. You'll be able to see all his logs, which are in his signature. He's got 5 logs in his signature, which is amazing. And he's currently working on a log currently called bulk to strength cycle log. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about how he got into training, his bench press. He might be one of the strongest dudes on the forum. We're going to talk about his explosive arms, his supplements, his PEDs. He's going to talk about some of his surgeries. He's going to give in some of his secrets of how you can also build big arms like that and build big strength like that. We're also going to talk about a little bit about living in Australia. It's always fascinating to hear how guys around the world are living. But first, let me remind everyone, we are on Apple, we are on Spotify. Smash the like button, leave comments, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Tell your friends and family as we continue to grow this podcast into the #1 bodybuilding podcast out there. So with that said, thank you, Ohdamn, for joining us this evening. I think it's this evening your time. So really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's an honor to be on here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mobster.
just on that. So, yeah, thank you very much for that. Just on that, and we've done this with all these recent shows. We can't do these shows with a guest like yourself coming on, telling your story, entertaining and educating the listeners, and the whole getting more and more of our members on has literally become a thing in and of itself. It's become incredibly popular, which is great. But it's also bringing the community together. And as an example with Ohdamn, we've just recorded a show a few minutes ago with a New Zealander, Kiwi. We're going to do this show with an Australian member, and we've got people in Belize, with regardless to the American and the European, and literally world fucking wide. And that community, and we'll touch upon the evolutionary community and how it's helped him as well, and whether or not it's helped him, of course, has enabled us to do these shows. So we thank you very, very much for coming on today. From on behalf of myself, Stevesmi, the forum, the moderators of the forum, and the bosses of the forum, again, thank you so much for making the time in the evening where Ohdamn is to come on to the show and do a show with us and hopefully help himself and help the listeners too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
So one of your old logs, you mentioned you were in your early 30s. So that was back in 2024, where it said you're 31 years old. So I'm assuming you're like 32, 33 years old now. Take us back in time to how someone like you, who's so motivated, who's so serious about this, what brought you to the grind of this sport and what made you really fall in love with it? I'm assuming you've been doing this since you were a teenager, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, for me, it started with rugby league. I played football like from as young as I can remember. My dad signed me up for karate, which I didn't stick to, but then he signed me up for boxing, which I really loved. Me and my brother would train, and yeah, we
How old were
just
you
became a
when
passion.
How old were you when you
Oh,
started doing that? 12, 13, or younger?
yeah, I was around, yeah, that age. I was,
Okay.
yeah, about that age when I started boxing.
So because you wanted to be better at all those things, is that what led you to weight training? When did you consistently start weight training? How old were you?
I was just getting into about year 7. I just going to high school. I was friends with Ethan. He got me into training. We would train out the back of his house. He'd have a weight set up. We would just lift weights. It was just friendly competition. We'd push each other. We'd go for runs around the street. And yeah, from there, I just didn't stop.
Okay. And how did you first start? When you first started weight training, did it come naturally to you? Did you already automatically start building a lot of strength, or did it take some time for that to kind of kick in? We hear stories all the time of these Mr. Olympia bodybuilders, and a lot of them, they look so skinny and they start touching a weight, and it's like boom, they get huge and strong so fast. Was it something that
Nah,
came naturally to you?
yeah, it came naturally. I've always been big. Like even when I was like 16 and stuff, like in primary school, I was like 100 kilos. I was like overweight. So yeah, but I think that helped with the weightlifting back then.
Okay.
And then yeah, I just never really cared about aesthetics. I just
Yeah.
trained for strength. So
So when you
yeah, my
say
bench was my favorite exercise.
When you say you played football, I'm assuming that means like soccer, right? In America, is that what it is?
It's rugby league.
Okay, so rugby league, and then we were talking to another guy from New Zealand, B1 earlier, and he talked about he played rugby, and he was like over 300 pounds. He played some position. I can't remember the position. Mobster, what was the position he played?
Oh God, I was like first something or other. He said it
Yeah.
was the one of the he was 140 kilograms, and apart from the props, I think they were the biggest and most mobile players on the team. I can't.
Yeah.
It's not the kicker. It was the one after the kicker. It's annoying me now. So yeah, I mean,
Mm.
and again, he's about just short of 6 foot, more or less, and he
Yeah.
was 140 kilos when he finished the game. So he was a
Okay.
big boy.
So what
Yeah.
position did you play when you did rugby? Were you one of the big dudes up front, or were you more the runners?
Yeah, I was one of the big guys. I was the front row.
Yeah, I
Always
think
been,
that's what
yeah,
we were
front.
saying. Yeah.
No matter what team I played for, I'd be front row.
I live in the valleys of South Wales, and Wales as a whole, never mind the valleys, over here in the UK. Rugby is like the national game, then soccer, or in your case of where you are, Australian rules football. But number one is rugby. Everything else is number two, three, four. And if you can play rugby well, Steve, then you're going to pull well. You're going to be very popular, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it helps because of where we're going to get into in the show to make you a big, strong motherfucker. One of the things in the game, and I'm sure this is the same in Australia, Steve, and you can tell us so damn, in the recent years, some of the numbers of rugby players are putting up compared to where they did 20 or 30 years ago. There's some seriously strong boys. It used to be play the game, Steve, and then go and have some Guinness and a pie. Now they're very serious about the sport. Big money, and very, very strong 200 kilo benches, 250, 300 kilo deadlifts, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. And even in strongman, the stuff that I talked about as well, the two or three of the top strongmen in the world have played rugby at some point in the past. So it's a great foundation for strength and some athletic ability at the same time. Is that big? Would you say that was true for you coming from that into this?
Oh, damn, you there?
Yeah, sorry, my
Yeah.
Bluetooth just disconnected. Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Did you hear Mobster's question? Mobster, you want to repeat it again?
Yeah. So in professional rugby here in the valleys, and in strongman, we've seen some really big lifts in professional rugby now and some great athletic ability. The guys are taking it far more serious than they did 20 or 30 years ago. Do you think that foundation of rugby and being a big, strong bastard in that has helped you in the gym now? And obviously gives you
Yeah,
something to focus on and push forward.
yeah, it's definitely helped heaps
There's a thing
having
again, just
them.
some big numbers there. Yeah. What about moving on into the gym itself properly? So what time or how long did it take before the gym was the thing and rugby kind of went onto the back burner and become less important?
Yeah, with rugby, I just couldn't really balance it with work,
Mm.
and because it was like a team sport, I'm not really a big communicator, so I'd rather just do it by myself and just be in my zone and just yeah, just lift weights. That's why I love weights. It's
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
I
I've
can do by
seen
myself.
I've seen a lot of top bodybuilders. I think Arnold uses this as an example. This is way back in the day. I'm gonna I'm gonna say I'm probably the same as you in that regard, although I can talk for my country. He said something along the lines of, he said, I didn't mind playing team games, but I wanted to be responsible for my success. And I didn't like sharing the glory. And because you go to the gym on your own, and because it's only fucking you moving the bar, there's no one else responsible for what you're doing. You are responsible. When we get into for the benefit of the listener, some of the numbers you're doing, that's all Ohdamn's work. He might have some genetics, he might have a sporty background, but what makes him do what he does in the gym is down to him. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love
Okay.
it.
So did you get frustrated when you were playing team sports and no, and you felt like all the guys around me are kind of holding me back? And then with this, when you transitioned to this, you were like, damn, now I get to control 90% of the situation. I mean, there's some things you can't control. You show up to I showed up to the gym in the morning and the guy never showed, didn't show up to open it for 30 minutes later. Everybody's sitting there like really angry, So there's some things we can't control as well. And then, we're going to talk about the injuries later on in the show, but was that kind of the thing that kind of gravitated you to the iron game? Is just like, yeah, I can control 90% of this shit.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right. So
Yeah, I
let's
can
get
just
into yeah.
show up when
So
I
talk
can show
about
up when I
your
feel like.
Talk about your bench press. Maybe take us throughout the history of, how you evolved with your bench press now that you're in your early 30s. Tell us what your max bench press is and tell us how it kind of evolved over time. Was it more of a, was it a struggle? Were you hitting a plateau? I can remember with me, the first time I got up to 250 pounds, I was like so happy, and then like maybe a year or two later, I was getting 3 plates. And then I was like, wow, I finally got 3 plates. Then a year or two after that, I finally got over 400. And I hit a PR of 420. I was like so happy. And then, before my shoulder blew out. But was it similar to that where it was kind of like you were hitting these benchmarks and then you kept going? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I was just for me. It was just that the only way I know I'm progressing. I don't like look at my physique or anything like that. I just if I can lift heavier, then I know I'm doing something right. That's
Yeah.
how I measure it. And yeah, with the bench, just once I hit a certain amount of reps, like I usually do low reps, high intensity, high weights, and then yeah, I just once I can get like 6 reps, like up the weight and until I can do only 4 reps.
So what's your current
I've,
match? I know on your log you said you did 205
I've got some
kilograms,
numbers. Yeah, if you
which
want,
is
I can read these out as
450.
well, guys. Yeah, yeah.
What was your max
Yeah,
bench?
well, before my surgery, I got up to 240 kilos.
How much? 240?
But that was before surgery. Yeah,
So
after
that's
my
530 pounds just for the listeners. That's incredible. I don't think I've seen someone in the gym. I think the most I've seen a guy do in the gym is like 475, 480. And he was about 230, 240 pounds with a huge gut. But this guy was
yeah,
he was in his 50s. He was strong as fuck. And he was like 5 foot.
I, I, I,
He wasn't that
I,
tall.
I feel triggered when you say that, Steve. What the fuck?
No, no, no. You're dude, you got a fighter
It's
stomach,
not
weight for
that bad.
stomach.
Let me read
when
some
I
of these
was
numbers there for the benefit of the listeners, just to give you an idea. Right. So November 25, November of last year. This is where he was, and I'm going to read you where he is now. And two really impressive things stand out. And the big number you done back the day before this surgery, we'll talk about that in a minute. So this is November 25, 190 kilo times 3 to 4 reps. And he says, as he just said just now, Steve, once I get to 6 reps, I will go up 2.5 kilos in weight. I wrote down no sleeves because I believe the photograph or video that you put up, he wasn't wearing elbow sleeves. So it's completely raw. And I mean completely raw. No shirt, no sleeves, no wrist wraps, nothing. He pressed 200 kilograms or 440 pounds for two. And then I believe January 26th, so that's just a week or so ago, very early January, 2 sets, Steve, of 12 reps with 160 kilos. That is 352 pounds for 2 sets of 12, Steve. I don't know what's more impressive. He's 240 kilo bench, and I've only seen that once in my gym. It's just literally a recent new member as a police officer. the 200 kilos for two, because the most I've ever fucking done is 202.5 kilos for one, and he's doing this shit raw, or he's 352 pounds for two sets of 12 reps raw. That, I think sometimes, Ohdamn, we don't always appreciate how fucking rare this shit is. It's easy to see this on the internet. It's easy to see it on Instagram. The reality is you are a fucking freak. There are very few people at your gym that are doing that kind of stuff. And arguably, your two sets of 12 are probably more impressive for 352 pounds, more impressive maybe even in your 240 kilo pre-surgery or 200 kilo for two recent, because that is just epic. That's like the 1% of the 1%. Just for the benefit of the listeners, and we don't always think like this when we're doing it, try to explain your mentality when you're doing it. Try to give them a flavor of what it feels like being that big and that strong, because I know it can be difficult to explain, but try to give them a taste of what that would be for a normal fella.
Yeah, okay. Well, pretty much for me, before I do a set, I just think to myself, how bad do you want it? Like I listen to some motivational podcasts and some stuff that I hear from there like repeats in my head.
Yeah.
And then I just think like I've heard Eddie Hall do this. He's like he pinches himself before he goes up to do the weights. He pinches himself
Yeah.
and then like because I've got a kid as well, I think if I don't lift this, then I've got to lift it off her. Like it's just
Wow.
something I do.
Eddie Steve told a story for his 500 kilo deadlift. He's told this story properly once, and he's hinted at the story a couple of times since. So he went to see a sports psychologist. In addition to the story, he would pinch the flesh on the back of his hand and squeeze it, as he told himself the story. Rob Frampton, who you see on the 500 kilo, made him do this thing in the Portaloo backstage at the stadium of the arena. And essentially, he was imagining someone sexually abusing one of his children, and he had to fight 24 police officers to get to them. And that rage, that focus, that fire just drove him sort of crazy. And he come running out, and no one's going to fucking do this. Just fucking me. I'm going to fuck this shit up. And I've said for myself, and maybe Ohdamn can tell us this as well, I will abuse the fuck out of myself in terms of, you fat fuck, people are fucking watching, get this fucking shit done. Stop pissing around and come down here to act like a wanker. Get this fucking thing done. So that kind of whatever the fuck works for you. Ohdamn, honestly, maybe you can explain this. What works for you? What gets your, as you've just said, saving your child works for you. The house being on fire and rescuing your kids works for you. That kind of thing. So yeah, people do need to. It sounds a bit silly when you talk about it, perhaps in a social situation, but that's where you need to be in order to bring the absolute fucking best out of yourself. So yeah, give people maybe a little bit more of that kind of fire and determination that's required to go to these kind of crazy places.
Yeah, it definitely helps me to think like that.
It's for me, look, and I said this already, people don't understand, because they can find stuff on the internet and YouTube, just how rare some of this stuff is. One of the things I wrote down was you had a 550 kilo leg press, which is 1,200 pound leg press, Steve. That's a big number. Most people are good for 300-400 kilos if they're serious. 1,200 pound is over 1,000 pound is a big number. And I think maybe we're kind of almost, oh, this is what I do. But then we look around the gym and see that most people aren't doing that. How does it feel being that big and strong? And maybe, is it normal to you, or is it somewhere that you like to be and you have to work to be there?
Yeah, it feels amazing. Like I can't describe it, to be honest. Like I get a lot of compliments. Like I've had people offer to spot me, and then I've had other people say to that guy, like, "How are you going to help?" Like that sort of like keeps me going, like motivates me. And yeah, just
Are
making
people
friends.
are people in the gym like amazed like how strong you are. Like like people who've maybe never seen you weight train before and they see you throw on like 3 or 4 plates, are they like blown away? Because I had a guy one time, I had like 3 plates on, I was doing it for
Mm,
reps,
mm,
and
mm.
he just like comes up to me with this open mouth. He's like, how are you this strong? And he's like, have you always been this strong? He was like
Yeah, since I
flabbergasted.
was a baby
He just didn't understand. I was like, dude,
in the crib.
are you kidding me, dude? I was like fucking so weak when I was, in
Yeah.
high school. It's just like I said, you got to put in the hours and be consistent. He's like, oh, and he like turns around and walks away. He didn't like that answer. I was like, dude, I've been consistently doing this for years. This is what
I
you
was
got
gonna
to
say
do.
I was gonna say to Ohdamn Steve, because sometimes they say, yeah, I was benching 300 when I was in the cot. My mum used to have to take the barbell off me when we went out in the pram, all that kind of shit.
What was the best story of someone who's just been like, wow, you're strong as hell. I can't believe it.
Probably the best story. Hello.
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, carry on, mate. Yeah, yeah, go on.
Yeah, the best story I've had. Um, I was probably just doing like 140 kilos and then like just for reps. And a
Mm.
guy said like that's his best he's ever got for one rep.
It, it's
Yeah, that's
it's
the
isn't there a weird thing, and a lot of bodybuilders and strength athletes find this. There's this, especially for the younger listeners. Again, we imagine, especially for the younger guys, we imagine that training and getting into shape is going to make us more attractive to women, and it does. But you're more likely to get feedback of other fellas at the gym than a woman. I have had women say to me, people are watching you when you're lifting those crazy weights, but for the most part, you're more likely to get a pat on the back or well done, bro, or whatever of all the fellas than you are. There's going to be 10 blokes for one woman every single fucking time in terms of whether you're big, whether you're strong, or they call you big man when they see you in the club or whatever. So it's kind of weird. We end up ultimately, we do this stuff for ourselves. The things we do in the gym, getting lean, getting into shape, being strong, being muscular, having a big fucking arm or whatever. Tell us a little bit more, because you mentioned it earlier. You said you did 240 kilos for the injury. Talk about the injury. What happened? What was the surgery
yeah with
like?
the
Did you have surgery, the rehab? Yeah.
yeah with the injury I was because I had a previous injury for my back. I had back surgery, and
Right.
then at the time I was just couldn't train legs heavy, so I wasn't resting my chest enough. So I just did, like wasn't recovering, and then
Yes.
I was warming up with like 200 kilos, and then I think on the third rep I was on the way up, and then yeah, my left side just gave out.
Right.
What does that mean? Left side, your pec blue or your
Yeah,
shoulder?
my pec. It was my
Oh,
pec.
okay, that's pretty common. Yeah, I blew out my right shoulder. I didn't even know I blew out my shoulder when I blew it out. Did you know you blew it out right away when you blew out your pec?
I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was torn, but
Okay. So what
I,
happened? You ended up going to the doctor and they did an MRI and they said, sorry, you're torn. How did that all play out?
yeah, I ended up going straight up to the hospital. Went up, sat in the emergency room, and
Good.
then I got like, MRI, and then yeah, it needed surgery. The
Something very quickly, guys, and I think this applies to you because you just said it. We've seen people get bicep tears and pec tears in bodybuilding, and specifically the bicep tears in strongman. Key, and Ohdamn is a good example of this. As soon as you realize you've done it, straight to ER, straight to what we call it A&E in this country. And it's weird, Steve. And again, it's for the benefit of the listeners. If you got function, if you can still move your arm from A to B, if you can still move your arm across your body like you would using your chest muscle, some hospitals, even with insurance, won't prioritize the surgery and because they, oh, you got function. Well, the fact that your chest muscles now in your fucking armpit or somewhere around your sternum is neither in or there. The fact that your biceps somewhere up near your fucking armpit is neither in or there. So what we advise people to do is one, go to A&E or ER immediately, because the quicker the surgery, the better. If you leave it for 72 hours, really, really difficult to reattach any meaningful way. And number two, if the fucking ER or the surgery or whatever the hospital you've gone to are shit, and they won't prioritize the surgery, or you've still got functions so we don't need to operate, go to another ER, go to another hospital. Talk a little bit, now that the advice is out of the way, how long did it take you to recover? Because you're back to big, you might not be benching 240 kilos, fella, over 500 pounds, but you are still benching 440 pounds, 4 reps. So talk about the recovery. How long did it take you to recover? Did you do, obviously, some sort of rehab, physio? How long did that take?
Yeah, it took about a year until I was like just getting started with free weights. Like
Mm,
probably took like 6 months just use the machines. And I
yeah.
was with physio helping me stretch and get the range of motion back.
Yes.
And yeah, I did use peptides, BPC 157 TB
Cool.
500, which really sped up the process. Yeah.
So looking back at that injury, what did you attribute that injury to? Was it not properly warming up? Was it not properly building mobility over time or and flexibility? Because when I tore my shoulder, I did not quite understand at the time. This happened in my like early to mid 30s. I didn't understand at the time how important it was to have mobility and flexibility in your joints, because if you don't have that mobility, it's like a stretching a frozen rubber band. It's just going to snap. And I didn't
Mm.
understand at the time. No one told me. And now, obviously, I try to tell people all the time, you must warm up. You must do your mobility. You must do your stretching. You must do your yoga, whatever you have to do to increase your range of motion. And you must warm up properly, and you must not overdo it in the gym. So do you attribute it to kind of all the above, or do you attribute it to one thing specific? Maybe you could have warmed up more properly, or do you think it was just a disaster waiting to happen with the amount of weight
He,
you're
he
doing?
said earlier, Steve, about because of the leg injury, he was training it too fucking frequently. So give people the advice. How long after a really good heavy chest session would you leave it, or advise people to leave it? Give them a clue before you
At
train
least
heavy again.
definitely a week. That's what I've been doing lately.
Mm,
I
seven
usually do,
days.
yeah, I do one heavy session and then
Mm,
I'll back off with the way to do higher reps.
yeah.
So yeah, my training's changed a lot since that injury.
I
But
do a
yeah,
thing now. Maybe you do this as well. When I had the frozen shoulder issue, which took 2 years to recover from, every press or bench press, I'll do 40 reps with the broomstick and then 20, 30, sometimes 40 reps again, just with the fucking bar. And the guys that are new to the sport, they can't get their head around a big bastard like yourself, 120 kilos, strong as fuck, just pressing a bar or just pressing, as my case, a broomstick. They can't get their heads around it. But we do that because we don't want any more injuries. We do that because we won't show them ability. So yeah, warming up. Would you do that as well? Just pressing the bench press bar, no weights on, even though they can see how big and strong you are.
definitely. I always start with an empty bar.
Mm,
And what I think attributed to the injury was like a mix of all that stuff. But
mm.
I was on I was on Tren at the time, so I think my muscles got stronger than the joints.
Yes.
So
Me too.
yeah,
That's how I tore my shoulder the
Yeah.
same way I was on Tren. Of course, it's going to get stronger. I was doing 420. I would have never been able to do 420 without Tren. Of course, and
That's
it goes beyond what your body's capable of doing. Of course, something is going to break. So it's just like it just comes with the territory. If you want to, lift Superman weight, it's going to happen. And a lot
mm.
of people don't get that when you're younger. You don't get that because you think you're invincible when you're younger because you're able to overcome these injuries. But as you get older, your body starts falling apart. Hence why you see professional athletes that get into their 30s start getting more and more injuries and start retiring really by the time they're 35. You don't see
One
too
of the
many pro
things,
athletes
Steve,
that.
one of the things I think,
I
Ohdamn, you can back me up on this one. So one of the ones that happened in professional bodybuilding back in the late 80s and 90s, Kevin Leverone's a good example of this with the pec tears, was and again, this is for the younger listeners that want to jump on PEDs too soon, your muscle strength grows quicker than your connective tissue strength, meaning the fascia, the tendons, the sinews, the whatever. And so 90 times out of 100, when these tears occurred, it's because, as Ohdamn just said with the Tren, the strength would become enhanced in the muscle very, very quickly. Thicker fibers, they're firing quicker, you can push more, but your connective tissue strength takes a lot longer to build up in strength and whatever else. Your muscle overcomes the elastic connections, the sinewy connections, and that's where you get the partial tears. Arguably, and Ohdamn, you can verify this, in a perverse kind of way, it teaches us to listen to our bodies. It teaches us, as you now know, to wait a week between heavy sessions. Would you say that you learned a lesson and that you're much better now, arguably maybe even more in the future because you had to learn that lesson?
Yeah, I definitely learnt the lesson. I remember a member on the forum said it's a blessing in disguise, and I agree with
Yes.
him. My physique at the time wasn't the best, but now I've got abs, so I'm
Yeah.
healthier. Yeah, so it's
Let
paid
me
off.
touch on the fun. You just mentioned the food, 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. I made a note here. Good, clean, solid food. There's no frills, there's no special sauces. It's just simple potatoes and meat and steamed vegetables and whatever. Talk a little bit about the difference the diet has made for you, and then we're going to talk about briefly the PEDs as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty strict with the healthy stuff. Just rice, potatoes, oats for the carbs, and honey, stuff like that. And protein's just chicken, fish, and
You,
fats just avocado. And then yeah, I going up to like
we
8K on training days.
8,000,
Um,
what,
yeah,
8,000? Wow.
usually like a day of the week,
Mm.
and then I just I'm to like 6. But
I
yeah,
think something that we've done on the shows, and we've said this again quite a few times, including the last show that we just recorded. Every single successful member of our forums, there are commonalities. Commonalities would be the focus and the training, which we know you've got. But the other one is meal prep or no bullshit food, very simple food structure. And you hinted at earlier on that having this control over your food, having a clean, solid, no frills kind of diet, arguably is probably a big part of the reasons why you're still able to do what you're able to do. You've learned to recover from your injury. You know to pace yourself better in terms of recovery from a heavy session. Key, and you mentioned the abs. Your 120 kilos for the American listeners is 264 pounds, 19 stone in old money, as they say. That's a big bastard, stupidly strong, and he's not. There's no secret to the food. There's no Steve. You want to talk about this? There's no special fucking secret food that we're all eating to get strong, guys.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go on. So talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
You there,
yeah, the
Ohdamn?
food I
Go
find.
ahead.
Yeah, I find like mainly I get all my carbs pre and post workout,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, just keep it simple. Like I don't really meal prep. I just use an air fryer, put the chicken in
Yep.
with the potatoes, give that like 20 minutes.
One of
And
one of the things that Steve you mentioned rice cookers, sweet potatoes, baked potatoes, whatever. Fucking straightforward, guys. Give us one tip in regards to food. Do you ever season it a certain way or cook it a certain way? Just something that you like particularly that the listeners maybe could benefit from. Just something that you do.
I don't really season it. I just if I do season it, it's just the barbecue sauce, reduced
Mm-hmm.
salt and sugar, Master Foods barbecue sauce, or I use some spices like paprika and garlic, onion powder and stuff.
Something I've seen, and you mentioned it earlier, is the honey thing. two or three of our members are quite big on honey around breakfast time with the oats, giving you that little
Yeah,
burst of energy. And something else as well, you can tell the listeners about this. Steve's mentioned this in regards to my own training and my nutrition. Because we're quote unquote, you're more physical than I am, more physique, should I say, than I am. But because we're strength athletes, we seem to benefit more from carbs than we do protein, or the focus on carbs. So that energy thing in the morning with you with the honey gives you the burst of energy from a natural source before you go to the gym. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I always have honey with my oats, and I always
Something, Steve.
have whole cream milk as well, like
Hmm.
with the oats
I,
and the honey.
I was gonna give Ohdamn a little bit of shit, purely and simply because he's not the only person I've done this with. So in his log of about 2 weeks ago, and you've mentioned that you're almost but not quite at, arguably, Steve, one of the biggest, I said biggest bench pressers, so I said possibly bench press king, but I'm also going to say potentially the biggest arm measurement we've seen on evolutionary, almost, as Ohdamn said pre-show, at 22 inches. And the only shit I was going to give you, purely and simply, is words of advice if you like, but also if I was your gym bro, I'd not be poking you in the chest and going, hey, what the fuck? Guys need to learn to measure without a wonky tape measure. I'm thinking of the late Monstro, Steve, putting up a tape measured, very muscular tape measured arm, and it was ever so slightly on the tilt. And I think, no, it should be straight up and down. Listen, and I think you said this at the time, Steve, genuine 20 plus inch arms, and Ohdamn has definitely got a 20 plus inch arms, probably 21 and a quarter, 21 and a half. Is are rare as fucking hen's teeth. There's literally the 1%, arguably up there with your 240 kilo bench. Close to, if not exactly 22 inches, is big as fuck. And again, for your height and your body weight, that is enormous. It really, really is. How does that fucking feel, having an almost 22-inch arm?
Yeah, I feel like it restricts my movement at times. Like when I go to put the seatbelt on in the car,
Mm.
like especially
I've
when
had this
they're
thing,
pumped.
Steve. I take a 52 long, I think might be slightly bigger now, 52 long jacket. And I've got jackets upstairs from a few years ago, and I can't get my forearm down the fucking sleeve, never mind my upper arm. And Ohdamn's got me on the bicep here. The biggest mine's ever been at 336 pounds was 21 and a quarter inch with a fucking 1 inch pump. It was the biggest pump I've ever had. And I can't physically get my arm down a fucking sleeve. So, fella, you must be struggling with the clothes at the minute on the arms.
Yeah, sometimes when they're pumped, but not when they're just
Yeah.
soft. I think like when the pump hits.
Yep. So before we get into your surgeries, talk a little bit more about your favorite PEDs that you've ever run or favorite cycles that you've
Mm.
ever run. I know in your logs you really like the nandrolones and you like testosterone and slash sustanon and all that. And then also anadrol. You talked about anadrol in your recent log. So what are some of your favorites that you've ran previously? And you already touched on why Tren is kind of one that led to it's funny because our last episode too we did this morning, the guy mentioned
Mm.
Tren 2 messed them up
Doing his
mentally.
cardio, yeah.
With you it
Mm.
messed you up physically where it led to your injury. So talk a little bit more, why do you like the nandrolones so much, MPP, DECA?
Yeah, I love the nandrolone for just like the joint cushioning and the water weight. I like the water weight being like a bit watery, and then I like Enadrol. I love Enadrol just in 1 week or 2 week intervals, 3 times a
Mm.
week, like just pre-working. I like that for the same reason as MPV, like the water weight helps with the leverage for the lift.
Yeah, I said that. What about the dosages? Because you're running slightly different from what I would. I've got here, and this might have changed. 250
Mm.
to 500 milligrams a week of Sustanon. You wrote this is again probably late November. A bulk cycle, bulk log. NPP at 300 milligrams a week, and as you said just now with regards to anadrol, possibly anadrol the final 4 weeks as a pre-workout, and then I think towards the end, as I was reading through your log, you'd added test propionate in there. So talk about the dosages Have you tried more? Have you tried less? Is this what works best for
Yeah,
you?
yeah, pretty much everything stayed the same except for the test. Like I've gone up to 750 milligrams with the test.
Okay, that's a lot.
I
Yeah.
was I was adding like because I got test P, so I added that to the Sustanon.
Mm. I,
Yeah, and
abs-
then
I, abs-
yeah,
I absolutely agree with you in regards to the leverage. I've said many times on these shows with Steve and with guests, etc., because I'm a lifter, because I'm more of a lifter than I'm a builder. Bearing in mind that Ohdamn has got a fucking six pack. Even now, he's got a six pack. The idea of a little bit of water retention doesn't bother me because it cushions the joints, which means we can lift more because it's not as painful. And at the same time, it improves our leverage, especially for pressing or even squatting, as per this morning. So I wish I'd got more of a response to Anadrol like you, because I don't seem to get anything from it whatsoever. So you've obviously found, and including the test properly, what works for you, what you respond to. That might be part of your genetic makeup. It might just be literally the dosages is perfect for you. Have you tried different doses in the past, as I said earlier? Have you tried more or less, but you found that these dosages are what works for you? Or did you just get lucky with these dosages and found that that was great? I didn't need to do anything with it.
no, I've just pretty. I've never really had negative side effects. I've
Mm.
I've gone up to probably a gram of test in the past,
Right. Yep.
and yeah, then my first cycle was just test, and then I did the test, Deca, and D bowl,
Right.
and then after that moved on to the Tren, and then like after the surgery was when I tried the equipoise, which I really liked for the vascularity and the endurance benefits. And I don't like Superdrol. I tried that, but I'm
Mm.
just not. I prefer Integral.
I noted, Steve, and I'm going to touch upon this now. In your log, you broke down supplements, which is everything but PEDs, although some people do put PEDs down as supplements, they obviously aren't. And you put them into three different categories. One, Steve, was basics, which is whey protein, creatine, vitamins, etc. Then you had performance, meaning what gets you into the gym, what helps you in the gym, etc., which you had a pre-workout, caffeine, and pump ingredients, plus fast carbs, which we touched upon earlier with the honey, pre and intra training. And then you included a section here, which you put a bit more information into as well, what you call support health section. Citrus, bergamot, Steve, for cholesterol and BP. I'll ask you as well, Ohdamn, your thoughts on these things. COQ10. I did an article on that with some buddies back in the day. Older fellas love that. NAC, Tudka, some pre or probiotics. I'm always going to say this wrong. Ashwagandha for sleep and stress, and beetroot, which I'm a big fan of. So talk about these ones. So citrus bergamot. You put here cholesterol BP support. So it's a big thing for athletes, especially using PEDs, that we don't pay enough attention, Steve, as you know, to heart health and blood pressure. Talk a little bit about the support supplements that you've got here, Ohdamn, and maybe the effects on your health and how important that might be to you.
Yeah, definitely. I just take them daily, pretty much in the morning. Probiotics and ashwagandha before bed, and
Mm-hmm.
the beetroot is something I started using after I got a coach. Like I was cutting weight, and as soon as I started eating beetroot, it just I could notice the difference with the pumps
People don't.
and
I use a product here in the UK, and the company Beat It have been taken part in over 200 studies, most of which are around the blood pressure thing, Steve, and the rest which was sports performance. It's very simple, and it's literally, I think my one is 90% beetroot juice and 10% apple, just to stop it tasting fucking rancid because it's horrible on its own. Um, Great for your pump in the guy's gym. It's a vasodilator, and it will lower high blood pressure. So not only is it healthy for you, it's also going to give you a better pump in the gym. You've got here the cholesterol BP supporting the citrus, coenzyme Q10, which you're taking. One of the older fellas wrote for my little newsletter back in the day. It was almost like an energy thing for them, helping you get through the day, especially when you're training your ass off. You've got two liver supports here. The probiotics, just because we are pushing the proteins and the diets, and something which we've emphasized here, and I think I want to ask you about this as well, Ohdamn. The ashwagandha for sleep and stress. Reducing stress, super important, but also enhancing sleep, as you said. I'm going to ask you now, how important to you, and we have touched on this in other shows, is the recovery, getting the sleep, recovering from the fucking hard workouts that you're doing in the gym?
Yeah, I always like I get probably about 6 hours each
Mm-hmm.
night. Like I take growth hormone before bed, and
Yep.
then 6 hours, and then but always in the day I always have a 2 hour nap. I always try to fit room to squeeze in a 2 hour nap, whether it's after
Oh,
work.
2 hours is a fair old bit, fella. If I go 2 hours, I would struggle to sleep at night. Anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes, if I can, not always. Silly thing, Steve. My dad would take naps at the weekend after working shifts or whatever. And when you're younger, you're like, what are these old fuckers? Where's he taking a nap? What's that all about? And now I'm like, oh, it's a luxury. It's fucking amazing. I wish I could do it more. So yeah, I wish I could do 2 hours, but I don't think I could. Something just as a thing in your log, I was blown away by. So you started the log at 109 kilograms, and that was a fasted body weight, Steve. And then I said, looks lean in the first December pick. December 2nd, now pay attention here, it was 115 kilos. He'd gone up from 109 to 115 in a quite short time. So those PEDs that we mentioned earlier was certainly fucking helping in that particular regards. And then by December the 5th, which is 3 fucking days later, so December the 2nd, Steve, 115 kilos. December the 5th, 3 fucking days later, fellas, you were 120 kilograms and you still had abs. That is blowing the fuck up, Steve. Oh, damn, that is really, really quick, mate. I don't think we kind of, if we younger listeners just starting this training journey, how the fuck did you put 5 kilograms on in 3 fucking days? That is
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah. You're a
rebound.
super responder.
Yeah, I just cut to 100 kilos, and then I think it just rebounded back on what I should be
Yes.
with, and plus the carbs I was eating, plus the pads. Yeah,
Yeah. I said that my biggest followed the cut. So that rebound, that sort of, your body was primed and
yeah.
you're eating the right food and training like a bastard. So give the listeners some advice. You've been around the game long enough. You've had to recover. I know, Steve, I should bring him back perhaps more to that surgery thing as well. Let's do the surgery thing, and then I want to pick your brains to see if we can get you to give the listeners a bit of advice. So you've had this injury, you've gone to hospital. Tell us about the surgery and the recovery from the surgery. So how bad was how many stitches, reattachment, what was that like?
They had to suture the pec to the shoulder tendon, I think, somewhere up there, shoulder bone or something.
Yep.
Yeah, we had to suture it up there. And
How long was you immobilized? I mean, they put you in a sling. How long did you have to wear the sling?
probably like 6 months.
How
Yeah,
long?
like 6 months while I was going through physio.
Mm. That's a long time, Steve.
And one of the things the surgeon said to me is, like, I'd only get 90% of my strength back. So that kind of impressed me. And then I made the log on EVO, which really helped me, like motivated me, like the supportive members. Just, yeah,
Let me
encouraging.
ask you about that. Let me ask you about it. So, look, guys, we're obviously here talking about our community. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. The last person we just interviewed said coming on to Evolutionary worked for him because it was in the trenches information. You are surrounded, I'll include myself here, with benching 200 kilos. You're surrounded by people who've been there, seen there, and done that. What difference has it helped make to you coming on evolutionary? What have you learned? What's the tips you've had? How have people helped you? Give listeners a little bit of like, what's that about? What's it feel like?
Yeah, the biggest things I've learned is just reading other people's journeys, taking things from their journeys and adding that to like applying it to what I can add to what I do, and then especially the comments, like
Mm,
suggestions,
yeah.
members give
Some big
suggestions.
someone said, I think the last fella said as well, we've had on our shows, we've had people that have had addictive issues. We're talking about your injury. One of the things they said, which is a couple of people have said, this is non-judgmental. We don't care if you fucked up in the past. We care about where you are right now. And I say sometimes on this show, sometimes on the forum, if I get the opportunity, if I think about it, we want you to succeed. We want you to recover from injuries. We'd love to see you, for example, get back to benching 240 kilos post injury. We do these shows, and I think you've just touched upon this on yourself, because you can come onto the forums and see for yourself with Ohdamn as a great example. Someone who was a bigger fella to begin with, who's had a issue that required surgery, is still a big, strong, muscular, lean bastard. Absolutely. 264 pounds, nearly 22-inch arms, repping 352 like it ain't shit. And even though that might be arguably freak territory, it can inspire people, and other people are on there. I think you're in Australia, so just touch a little bit on that scene in regards to the difficulty perhaps of getting PEDs in Australia, which we're familiar with, but also as we come towards the end of the show, a little bit about life in Australia, training in Australia. What's that like?
Yeah, well, the problems with getting heads in Australia is just finding the right source, knowing
Mm,
who to trust, how
yeah,
not to get scammed, which is what EVO helps with. Like they have
But does it help on
verified.
Yeah, so it helps on Evo having the sources on Evo being trustworthy. That's gone a long way, right? In
yes,
your
yes,
situation,
yes,
so you don't
yes,
get ripped off.
Especially the reviews from the other top
yeah.
members,
And
like the ones
who
you
have
can
been the
trust.
top guys that have helped you with that?
Mm,
Definitely Pigsy, like cool guy.
mm.
Yeah, and yeah, just a bunch of all the other
Okay.
members.
So they've led you in the right direction, and you trust if one of the cool guy or Pigsy says, "Hey, go with this source, go with this brand," you think guys out there can trust them 100%, right?
Definitely.
Okay. Good, good. Yeah, and that's what it's all about on Evo for sure. Yep. And who are some of the
There's
other
a great
guys? Yep.
thing here, Steve. I think sometimes, and I think Odam's been representative of this without even necessarily realizing it for himself. Again, you're coming on this show, Ohdamn, you're putting your information out there. You're actually going to be helping people just by letting them listen to your story. People like Pigsy, especially Pigsy from the Australian side, what they do is almost their own reward. They're not getting money out of it. They're not sort of he's not fucking getting gold medals or whatever else. He's doing it because he likes to help people. He's doing it because he wants you not to fuck up. He push you in the right direction or tell you to go and talk to this person purely and simply because he wants to make sure that you don't have to fucking have the inconvenience of getting ripped off or the inconvenience of dealing with a bad source or underdosed products or whatever. And if a problem occurs, the guys are very, very quick to point the problem out. We throw fucking people that were trusted once but can't be trusted anymore. They go off the forums, and it's definitely that kind of stuff. We want you to succeed. We want you to train hard or whatever else. So yeah, that kind of thing is super, super important to us. And again, guys, back in the day, it wasn't like that. There are many forums that still exist where they're mostly talking shit, or the person who's giving you advice is 15 fucking years old. That's not the case on Evolutionary. I think, oh damn, literally, we're watching your journey, we're watching you succeed, we're watching you recover, we're watching you get bigger. I'm still fucking like that. The fact that you are 120 kilograms, pushing in excess of 200 kilos, repping 352 like it ain't shit, with a six pack, while on watery steroids, which I like myself, it is amazing. So listen, without you necessarily even realizing it, you're an inspiration. Any final thoughts, Steve? Any final tips, guys? You know, give
Yeah.
us one
Yeah,
thing,
Ohdamn,
one thing.
give us some
Yeah,
tips for guys out there who want to get strong as fuck. And what are some
yes,
tips that they can do right now? There's people listening out there. They're like, I want to get strong like Ohdamn. I want to get big like Ohdamn. What are
yeah,
some tips you
yeah,
can give
yeah.
them overall? Could be anything. It could be nutrition, training, mentality,
Whatever.
anything you
Yeah,
have to.
yeah.
Yeah, the advice I give is just take it slow, don't rush into it. Just pick a weight you're comfortable with doing a certain amount of reps with, and then just progressively overload and keep the nutrition as high as your body needs. Like keep the protein intake and the carbs and vegetables. Yeah, just keep it healthy. And
What about the log? Do you think you get something from having a log on the forum? You've had, as Steve said earlier on, 5 logs, I think it was,
yeah,
Steve. So you're obviously a big logger. You understand the benefits of having a log.
yeah, definitely keeps you accountable. Definitely
Mm.
well, I wouldn't say like it makes it like it pays off in the end having people like it motivates me motivating people to hear that
Yeah,
people are getting something out of what I'm doing because like I'd be doing this with or without a log. Like I I'm logging because I might as well. Plus, it does help with the accountability even more so than what I'd have without it. But yeah, definitely log your
I,
updates. Yeah, definitely.
I've said it. I can train here. I've got some great equipment here, but I go to my local gym because if I'm having a lazy day, I can't be lazy when I go to the gym. None of us is super fucking human. We're not invincible. And coming on to the forum, having a log, as you said, with accountability means, okay, so I could have a lazy day today, but fuck this, the guys will read my log. I'm going to fucking go to the gym and kick ass instead. And then you get to go back through your log, guys, listeners. You go back through your log. Ohdamn does the same, I'm sure. Where was I 8 weeks ago? Where was I in the last log? Have I progressed? Have I moved forward? And you do that, and you get to see your progress. When we get the guys, they'll put up a picture, Steve, where they are right now. I say, if you can put up a picture of where you was 8 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, alongside it, you get to see the progress. People at the gym will point out when you're benching well, when your arms look big, but you don't always see the progress. You don't always notice it on a day-to-day basis. And the log, just go back to page 1. Where the fuck was I at page 1? Was I fat? Was I out of shape? Was I injured? Where am I now? Page 10. Look at me now. Fucking my chest looks bigger. My arms look bigger. I'm feeling strong. The guys are kicking my ass. People on the forums want me to succeed. It's super, super important, Steve. Any final thoughts again, Steve, before we finish the show?
Yeah, man. Just any final thoughts, Ohdamn? Like any final tips for people out there that you've noticed? What are some mistakes that you see in the gym people make a lot when it comes to strength training? Let's ask that to
Yeah,
finish it
give
off.
us one of that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really pay attention to people at the gym. I just go there and do my own thing. But there are kids there I've noticed that just play around too much, and sometimes they just like stay at a machine for too long. I'd say you don't need to be at a machine for that long. Like you can
No.
just,
Challenge
yeah,
yourselves.
that's
Challenge
all I
yourselves.
noticed.
Mm.
Yeah,
Free weight, free
and they
weights.
can,
The free weight machine
a lot of
argument is a
people.
million years old. Yeah, free weights will work you more because you do need to do more work to move a barbell or a dumbbell than you do a lever on a machine. That's just facts. All your support. Listen, you're a big bench presser, right? So your support structure, that's your front delts, your rear delt, your back, they're helping you with your bench. Your triceps and your forearms are helping you with your bench. And you will work all of those muscles more when you use free weights than you will with a bench machine or a lever bench type machine, guys. And again, challenge yourselves. Ohdamn is telling you, get off the fucking machine where it's easy and maybe you're a little bit nervous and you don't want to be seen to be weak. Get on the barbell, start using the fucking barbell bench if that strength is your thing, and you will get stronger just holding onto the bar, just supporting the bar, just stopping the bar wobbling, and that actually will benefit you long term. That doesn't mean to say you can't use machines. You need to do that more. Right, Steve. Look, end of the show. Again, thank you so much, Ohdamn, for coming on. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes talking on these microphones and doing these shows. But again, trust me on this, whether you realize it or not, your information, your recovery from your injury, still being a big, strong, lean, muscular bastard is going to help people a little bit. Getting them off the machines and onto barbells and dumbbells is going to help them. Having straightforward food is going to help them. Realizing what PDs works for you is important, is going to help them. And even coming on the forums and getting advice from the guys. And as he said earlier on, staying consistent, making sure that you do your stuff every single day because people are watching will help you. Listeners, what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Come onto the forums. Check out Ohdamn's log. We will reference that in the show notes where we can. Please note, we're not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcast are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.